Hello and welcome back to Math 055. This is your video for the section 6.3 notes. We're going to be talking about complex rational expressions. And complex rational expressions, what I want to talk about is that these are basically fractions within fractions. Okay? If you've seen the movie Inception, then these are incepted fractions, okay? And so what I want to do is kind of take a look at one of these examples and kind of look at this and say, how do we simplify this fraction? Now, this can be rather confusing, but what I want you to look at is that I have one big fraction, okay? So I have this whole big fraction, okay, I have a big fraction, and I have a numerator and a denominator to that fraction. Now our goal in this is to get one fraction out of this, get one fraction. Because what I see here is that I have this big fraction, and I have these other smaller fractions in my numerator and denominator. Okay, so what we're going to learn about is we're going to learn about how to simplify these complex rational expressions, okay? And there's two methods here, and I'm pretty much going to show you guys my method on how to do this. And what I want to do first, so you can read through this and do these different methods, but I'm going to show you guys my method, okay? So let's just kind of scratch this out and put Joe Poe's method. All right, and let me write out this fraction. I've got 1/2 minus 1/3 minus 1/3 divided by 2/5 plus 1/8. Okay, so 2/5 plus 1/8. And what I want to do is I want to get a single fraction in my numerator and denominator. Okay, so I need to get, so I'm going to kind of write out my steps here. I'm going to get a single fraction in the numerator and denominator. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, I have my numerator here and I have my denominator here in my big fraction. So what I want to do is I want to get a single fraction out of this. So what I need to do is I need to just subtract these two fractions. So I need a common denominator between these two. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this first fraction by 3/3 and this fraction by 2/2. Okay, on this next part over here, on the bottom part, I'm going to multiply this one by 8/8 and this part by 5/5. Okay, and in my next step, when I get this, I'm going to get 3/6 minus 2/6. And then I'm going to divide this by, what is that going to give me? 16/40 plus 5/40. Okay? And what I'm going to do is just add those together. So in order to add these, I'm just going to add my numerators together. And let's write this down as my next step. Okay? And so, excuse me, I just burped. All right, so now I've got this. I've got 3 minus 2/6 being divided by 16 plus 5/40. Okay, so now I can clean that up a little bit, and I can do 3 minus 2 is 1/6, and then I'm dividing that by 21/40. Okay. Now, what you notice here, and let's kind of just backtrack and see what we did. What I've done is I have just taken my numerator and I have created one fraction in my numerator and denominator. And so that's what I've done. I've gotten a single fraction in my numerator and denominator. Then what I'm going to do in step 2 is I'm going to divide the fractions, okay? All right, so, and let me rewrite this up here. So this step here, let me come back up here, and 1/6 over 21/40. So I've got 1/6 divided by 21/40, okay? So at this point, what I want to do is I want to divide my fractions. This is the same thing as saying 1/6 then divided by 21/40, okay? And so now as a result, what I end up getting is, I'm going to write this as a multiplication. So 1/6 times 40/21. All right, and so now what we want to, consider and look at here is, how does this simplify? And we can do this a number of ways, but let's just go ahead and multiply across. So 1 times 40 is just going to give me 40. 6 times 21 is going to give me 126. Okay. And now, this isn't simplified. What I could do is simplify this further, all right, and let's divide each of these by 2. So divide this by 2, this by 2, and that's going to end up giving me 20 divided by, and that's going to give me 63. All right, now, what we have to kind of realize here is that this is in simplified form, okay? I can't factor anything else out of here. I can't factor out a 2 from 63. Can't factor out a 5. Can't factor out a 4. So this is my answer here, okay? And that's just taking all of this here, all right, and turning it into one fraction. And that was our goal, is we wanted to get one fraction out of that, all right? So my tactic: get a single fraction in the numerator and the denominator, get down to this point, and then divide your fractions, okay? And we do that by, multiplying by the reciprocal, okay? So that's the method that I want you guys to use. All right, now I've got 3 problems here that are a little bit tricky, okay? And I'm going to follow the exact same steps in these 3 problems as I did for this. So this one dealt with numbers. Now we're going to deal with variables and algebraic expressions, okay? So let's just tackle part A first, all right? Now, what I want you to realize is that you have a numerator and you have a denominator, okay? And I need to get a single fraction in my numerator. Now, what I'm going to do is I need to get a common denominator. Now, the common denominator between x squared and y squared is going to be x squared times y squared, all right? So the rule of thumb is to kind of just multiply the other denominator by the other fraction. So I'm going to do that over here. I'm going to multiply this by y squared over y squared. I'm going to multiply this by x squared over x squared, okay? Now, in this denominator down here, I have x and y as separate denominators, okay? To get a common denominator, I'm going to multiply the other denominator by the other fraction, okay? So watch what I do. Okay, I'm going to multiply this by y over y, and this one by x over x to get common denominators. Now let's look at what happens on the next step here. All right, so what I'm going to get in my numerator is 2y squared divided by x squared times y squared minus 2x squared divided by x squared times y squared, all right? That's my numerator, okay? Now let's do the same thing for our denominator, all right? And that's going to give me 4y over x times y plus 4x over x times y, all right? I got a common denominator there. So now, because I have common denominators, let's write that all as one fraction. Okay, so now I've got this. I've got 2y squared minus 2x squared over x squared times y squared. Okay, that's my numerator. Now my denominator is going to be 4y plus 4x all divided by xy, all right? So guys, I'm not doing anything different than I've done before. I'm just, kind of adding in another step here. So now that I have two fractions, all right, I'm going to write this. So let me come up here and write this here. So now here's what I've got. I've got 2y squared minus 2x squared divided by x squared times y squared. Now I'm going to divide that by my denominator, which was 4y plus 4x over xy. Now what I want to do is I want to multiply now by the reciprocal. So I've got, let's do 2y squared minus 2x squared over x squared, y squared, times xy divided by 4y plus 4x. Okay, so now we've got to think about what we can divide here. Now, I have this numerator here and this denominator here. These are quantities, okay? What I can divide out is an x, and this is left with an x down here. I can divide out this y. We're left out with a y down here. All right, so my step down here, all right, is going to end up giving me, and let's think about what else I can do up here. I can factor out a 2 from my numerator, and I can factor out a 4 from my denominator. Now, when I factor out a 2, okay, I'm left with y squared minus x squared, okay? Now, in my denominator, and this should be not an x, this should be a y, my denominator here is just going to give me xy times, and let's also factor out a 4 from here. So I'm kind of doing a couple steps here. So factoring out a 4, and we're left with y plus x. Okay, now, a couple things that are going to divide out here. My 2 and 4 are going to divide out to 1 over 2. All right, I'm also going to factor my numerator here, and that's going to become y plus x times y minus x. And we're going to divide this by 2 times x times y plus x. Now, the last thing that's going to divide out is my y plus x. And so my final answer is going to be y minus x divided by 2 times x times y. And that's my simplified answer. So we've taken all this stuff that we had here, and we've turned it into something usable down here. Now, there are a lot of steps going on in here. So my recommendation for you is to make sure that you understand, okay, how am I going from this step to this step? How am I going from here to here, here to here, and then finally here to here, okay? And so you may have to rewatch this problem and redo it, but that's okay, all right? So let's take a look at then part B, all right? And what I want to do here is I'm going to rewrite this. And I'm going to use fractions in my numerator. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do 1 over 1 plus 3 over x divided by 1 over 1 minus 6 over x. Okay, now between 1 and x, my common denominator needs to be x. So in my first numerator here, I'm going to multiply this by x over x. And the same thing in my denominator. I'm going to write x over x to get a common denominator. So my next step is going to be this. I've got x over x plus 3 over x, and then I'm going to divide that by x over x minus 6 over x. Okay, now I want to get one fraction out of this. So what's going to happen in my numerator, I'm going to get x plus 3 divided by x, okay, because I'm just combining those as like fractions, okay, and then divide that by x minus 6 divided by x. All right, so I've got a single fraction in my numerator divided by a single fraction in my denominator. So now what I'm going to do is, let me write this step up here. I'm going to rewrite this as x plus 3 over x, then divided by x minus 6 over x. Now, to do division with fractions, we want to multiply by the reciprocal. So I've got x plus 3 over x times x divided by x minus 6. Okay? Now what I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to put this in parentheses here. That's a quantity. This is a quantity. What I can now do is I can divide out my x's. Those divide out to 1. So when I multiply these fractions together now, I end up with x plus 3 divided by x minus 6. And I leave it like that, okay? Now, I want you to think about something. A lot of people will try and divide out these x's and say that your answer is going to be 3 over negative 6, and that's incorrect, okay? Because you have pluses and minus signs here. Notice when I use the word divide out, it's always because we are multiplying. So in order for you to divide things out, you have to be multiplying things together, okay? All right, let's take a look at the very last one, okay? And on this one, I can do my numerator, but let's think about something here. I'm kind of confused about my denominator in this portion here. So in my entire numerator, I'm going to group those together. I'm going to group my denominator, those together. Okay. Let me rewrite this real quick. Let me do this as negative 2 over x minus 4 over x plus 2, all divided by 3 over... And let me factor out an x, so this is going to be x times x plus 2. Okay, that's good. And then plus 3 over x. The reason why I did that is because I need to see the structure of my denominators in order for me to find my common denominator. Okay, so here, on this part here, my common denominator is going to be x times x plus 2, okay? Because they don't have anything in common, I'm just going to multiply by the other denominator. So up here, I'm going to multiply this one by x plus 2 and x plus 2, okay? I'm going to multiply this part by x over x. I'm going to put this in parentheses, okay? Now, I already have my common denominator of x times x plus 2, so I'm just going to multiply this one by x plus 2. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this by x plus 2 and multiply this one by x plus 2. All right, so now here's what I get. Okay, I'm going to get negative 2 times x plus 2 over x times x plus 2. Okay, minus 4x over x times x plus 2. All right, just having that common denominator. Now, on this part, divide that by 3 over x times x plus 2. And I'm going to add 3 times x plus 2 over x times x plus 2. Okay? So now, because I have a common denominator here, all right, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to distribute my negative 2 here. So I'm going to get negative 2x minus 4 minus 4x all over x times x plus 2. Okay, I'm going to then divide that by, let me distribute this 3 here, 3 plus 3x plus 6. Okay, all over x times x plus 2. All right, so now that I'm at this point, okay, what I want to do is, let me combine my like terms. So I've got negative 2x minus 4x, that's going to be negative 6x, so negative 6x minus 4 over x times x plus 2. And I'm going to then divide that by, let me combine these, 3 and 6 is 9, so I've got 3x plus 9 over x times x plus 2. Okay, and now if I divide those fractions, it's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I've got negative 6x minus 4 over x times x plus 2 times, okay, x times x plus 2 divided by 3x plus 9. Now, what ends up dividing out here are my x's and x plus 2's. Okay, those are going to divide out. Okay, as a result, okay, we're going to get negative 6x minus 4 over 3x plus 9. Okay, and we can, if I factor out, I'm going to just leave my answer like this. Let me see if I can factor anything else out. If I factor out a -2, that leaves me with 3x and then plus 2. If I factor out a 3 here, that leaves me with x plus 3. Okay, and so if I continue to factor these, if I don't have anything that is going to divide out and none of this is, then I can just leave my answer like that. Okay, so I apologize. There's not a whole lot of room to do these problems, so you may want to have an extra sheet of paper. So I apologize about that. But yeah, that's in a nutshell how we do complex rational expressions. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Please get started on your homework, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.